The words we hear as kids, they don't just vanish. They stick with us. They can literally become the foundation of our entire lives. Today, we're going to talk about some of the most toxic things parents say and the very real lasting scars they can leave behind.
I mean, think about it. Every single child deserves to grow up feeling safe, loved, and supported. It's the baseline, right? It's the fundamental promise of childhood, the absolute bare minimum every person deserves. It's the ground floor for everything else.
But what happens when that foundation just gets shattered? What happens when the people who are supposed to be your safe harbor are the ones causing the storm? It's a painful, confusing reality for far too many people.
And look, this isn't just a theory. The numbers are pretty shocking. Back in 2008, the U.S. Administration for Children and Families reported that over 50,000 children were officially recognized as victims of emotional abuse.
And you have to remember, that's only the cases that actually got reported. Emotional wounds don't leave bruises you can see, so they get ignored or downplayed, which means the real number is probably much, much higher. Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll talk about those invisible wounds. Then, we'll get into the specific words that shape a child's identity, and the ones that completely break their trust. And we'll wrap up by talking about how to heal, not harm.
All right, let's kick things off with a big why. Why do these words pack such a punch? Even when someone says, I just said it in anger, or it was just a joke. Well, it's because the things parents say to their kids become their inner voice, the very blueprint for their personality, their confidence, and their whole sense of who they are. So let's get specific. In this next part, we're going to examine the actual phrases that do more than just hurt feelings. These are the words that attack a child's core identity, making them question everything about themselves. First up, attacking their appearance. We're talking about things like, you're ugly, you're too fat, or what's wrong with your hair? These words cut so deep, especially from a parent. And the fallout from this, it's just devastating. It creates an insecurity that can literally last forever. It teaches a kid that their value is only based on how they look, which can spiral into serious anxiety, body image issues, and even eating disorders down the line. Okay, number 2 is just as damaging. Mocking the way a child acts. Things like, why are you so weird? Or making fun of how they walk or talk. And what happens when a kid hears this over and over? They start to believe it. They internalize this idea that something is fundamentally wrong with them. So they grow up afraid to be authentic, constantly terrified of being judged. All right, this next one is probably one of the most soul-crushing things a child can ever hear. The ultimate rejection. I wish you were never born. I mean, can you even imagine? These words basically tell a child that their very existence is a mistake. This can just completely demolish their sense of self and lead to horrible outcomes like severe depression and self-harm. Next, let's talk about the comparison trap. A parent might say something like, why can't you be more like your brother? Thinking they're just motivating them. But look at the child's reality. All they hear is, I will never be good enough. It doesn't build confidence, it destroys it. And it plants seeds of resentment, not love. And then, of course, there's the straight-up verbal abuse, labeling a child as stupid or useless or telling them they're a loser. These aren't just mean words. To a child, these are facts. They believe it's the truth. And here's the really scary part. That voice, it doesn't just disappear when you grow up. No way. It becomes that little critic inside your own head, repeating those same toxic labels for decades, long after you've left home. Okay, so we've talked about identity. Now let's shift gears and talk about trust. Because some words don't just attack who you are, they attack your sense of safety in the world itself. This happens in a few really damaging ways. First, making a kid feel like they're a burden, saying things like, you cost too much money. Then, there's threatening to abandon them, one of the most terrifying things a child can imagine. And finally, there's this slow, steady erosion of trust from making empty promises you never keep. So what's the combined effect of all this? It's huge. The child learns to just hide their needs, to make themselves smaller so they're not a problem. They develop these massive abandonment issues. And ultimately, they learn that you just can't count on people, which can make it so hard to form healthy, trusting relationships as an adult. We've spent a lot of time on the damage, so for our last section, let's flip the script. Let's talk about the solution and focus on the incredible power our words have to heal. And this really gets to the heart of it all. You know, a scraped knee heals, but the wounds from words, they can stay open for a lifetime. They shape how you see yourself, how you connect with others, and how you see the world.
And listen, I want to take a second here. If any of this is hitting home for you, if you're recognizing your own childhood in these words, I just want you to hear this loud and clear. Your pain is real, and it is so, so valid. What happened was not okay.
So let's wrap up with this final thought for everyone. One sentence. That's all it takes to build someone up or tear them down. We make that choice every single day. So the question is, will our words be the ones that heal or the ones that harm?